"I'm too old for this." It became one of the most famous lines in action movie history. Danny Glover said it as Detective Roger Murtaugh, the tired Los Angeles police officer who wanted nothing more than to survive his final weeks before retirement. But the line became bigger than the movies. Fans repeated it at home, quoted it at work, and carried it with them for nearly 4 decades. What many people did not expect was that the man saying those words would become part of one of Hollywood's most lasting friendships. On screen, Danny Glover and Mel Gibson played 2 detectives who could not have been more different. Roger Murtaugh was careful, family-focused, patient, and always trying to avoid danger. Martin Riggs was reckless, grieving, unpredictable, and willing to risk everything. The joke was that they were opposites. The truth was that their differences created something rare. They made each other better. And behind the cameras, Mel Gibson and Danny Glover slowly built a bond that lasted far beyond 4 action movies. Before Lethal Weapon, Danny Glover was already known as a serious actor with unusual depth. He had appeared in Places in the Heart, Silverado, and Steven Spielberg's The Color Purple. He could play pain, strength, anger, and quiet dignity without needing big speeches. Mel Gibson, meanwhile, was already becoming one of the biggest stars in Hollywood. He had the wild energy of the Mad Max films, the confidence of a leading man, and the kind of screen presence that could make an audience believe he might do anything. Director Richard Donner needed the right actor to stand beside Gibson. He did not need someone who would copy Riggs. He needed someone who could challenge him, calm him, and make the audience believe these 2 men would eventually become family. Danny Glover was the answer. The first Lethal Weapon film arrived in 1987, and the chemistry was immediate. Audiences enjoyed the explosions, the car chases, and the dangerous criminals. But what they remembered most was the relationship between Riggs and Murtaugh. They remembered Riggs showing up at the Murtaugh family home. They remembered the birthday dinners. They remembered the toilet bomb scene, where Murtaugh is terrified and Riggs talks to him with a mixture of humor, patience, and real concern. Those scenes worked because the actors trusted each other. Gibson brought chaos to the screen, while Glover brought warmth and control. One pushed forward, the other held the story together. Their partnership gave the franchise its soul. At first, there was no guarantee that the pairing would work. Buddy cop films often depend on fast jokes and simple arguments, but Lethal Weapon needed something deeper. Riggs was a man carrying heavy grief and dangerous thoughts. Murtaugh was a man who had a family, responsibilities, and a strong reason to come home alive every night. Danny Glover made Murtaugh feel real because he did not play him like a superhero. He played him like a man who was scared sometimes, tired sometimes, but still brave when it mattered. Mel Gibson gave Riggs a restless energy that could have become too dark, but Glover's calm presence balanced it. Together, they created a friendship that felt believable from the very beginning. Over time, both actors spoke warmly about the work they did together. Glover has described Gibson's generosity as important to his own confidence and growth. Gibson has also praised Glover's talent, humor, and ability to make every scene feel human. Their friendship was not built on pretending to be close for interviews. It was built through long days on set, difficult scenes, creative choices, and years of returning to the same characters. They learned how to listen to each other. They learned when to make a joke, when to step back, and when to let the other actor have the moment. That is why, even today, people do not only remember Lethal Weapon as an action franchise. They remember it as the story of 2 men who started as strangers and became brothers. The real secret behind Mel Gibson and Danny Glover's bond was not simply that they made successful movies together. Hollywood has many famous co-stars who work together for a few years and then disappear from each other's lives. What made Gibson and Glover different was the respect that grew between them. Richard Donner created an environment where that respect could develop. Donner understood that the action was only one part of the story. He wanted audiences to believe that Riggs and Murtaugh cared about each other, even when they argued, insulted one another, or drove each other crazy. He encouraged the actors to find natural moments instead of forcing every line to sound perfect. That freedom helped create the humor and warmth that fans still love. The famous toilet bomb sequence is one example. It is remembered as a tense action scene, but it is also a scene about trust. Murtaugh is trapped, scared, and trying to stay calm. Riggs is beside him, speaking with a surprising softness. The moment shows the beginning of a friendship that would grow through every sequel. It is not just about a bomb. It is about one man deciding that another man's life matters. In later films, the relationship became even deeper. Riggs was no longer only Murtaugh's partner. He became part of his home, part of his family dinners, and part of the emotional center of the franchise. Glover gave Murtaugh a sense of reality. Gibson gave Riggs a wounded heart. Together, they made audiences laugh, but they also made audiences care. Their professional relationship continued through Lethal Weapon 2, Lethal Weapon 3, and Lethal Weapon 4. By the time the fourth film arrived in 1998, the two actors had spent more than a decade building these characters together. Their rhythm was effortless. They knew how to react to each other without needing to explain everything. They could turn a small look, a sigh, or a sarcastic comment into something memorable. That kind of chemistry cannot be created by marketing. It comes from time. It comes from trust. And it comes from two actors who understand that a scene is stronger when both people are allowed to shine. The later movies also showed how much the characters had changed. In the beginning, Murtaugh saw Riggs as a dangerous problem he had been forced to deal with. Riggs saw Murtaugh as an older partner who complained too much and slowed him down. But by the second and third films, they had become deeply connected. Murtaugh worried about Riggs as if he were family. Riggs respected Murtaugh's home, his wife, and his children. Their jokes became more personal because the friendship underneath them had become stronger. This was one of the reasons viewers stayed loyal to the franchise. They wanted to see the action, but they also wanted to see these two men survive another impossible situation together. Years later, when Richard Donner died in 2021, Mel Gibson spoke about the director with deep respect. Donner had wanted to make one final Lethal Weapon film, and Gibson said he felt a responsibility to carry that idea forward. The planned fifth movie became more than a sequel. For fans, it became a possible final goodbye to Riggs and Murtaugh. Gibson has said the script had emotion as well as humor, and that it could honor what Donner created. But the project has faced delays and studio complications. Time has continued moving, and that has made the idea of one more film feel more emotional than ever. Even without another movie, the legacy is already clear. Mel Gibson and Danny Glover gave audiences something action films rarely offer, a friendship that felt lived in. They were not perfect heroes. They were older, tired, flawed, and sometimes ridiculous. But they showed up for each other. That is why their bond became so meaningful. It was not about being the toughest man in the room. It was about having someone beside you when things became difficult. And that message has stayed with viewers for 38 years. For many fans, the story of Mel Gibson and Danny Glover's friendship feels more powerful today because it has lasted much longer than the movies themselves. Their partnership was never only about movie posters, box office numbers, or famous lines. It was about two men who spent decades showing respect for one another. They reunited at fan events in recent years, sitting side by side, joking about age, remembering the old days, and giving audiences the feeling that Riggs and Murtaugh were still connected. The humor was still there. The warmth was still there. And for longtime fans, those appearances carried a deeper meaning. They were reminders that some partnerships survive long after the cameras stop rolling. Mel Gibson has spoken with admiration about Danny Glover's work and character. He has remembered the early days of their friendship and the special energy Glover brought to the films. Glover, in return, has spoken about Gibson's generosity as an actor and the confidence he gained from working beside him. Their public images and personal paths have not always been the same, but their professional bond has remained visible. That is what makes their story unusual. It is not a perfect Hollywood friendship designed for publicity. It is a long connection built through shared work, difficult schedules, creative trust, and mutual respect. Danny Glover has always been more than an action movie star. Throughout his career, he has spoken about humanitarian causes, civil rights, workers' rights, and the importance of helping communities that are often ignored. He has used his fame to bring attention to issues that matter to him. That side of his life also helps explain why his character Roger Murtaugh felt so grounded. Murtaugh was not written as a perfect man. He was tired, frustrated, and sometimes afraid. But he cared about people. He cared about his family, his partner, and doing what was right. Glover brought those qualities to the role in a way that made audiences trust him. Whether Lethal Weapon 5 is ever made remains uncertain. The script, the studio delays, and the passing of Richard Donner have made the future of the franchise complicated. But perhaps the most important ending has already been written. It exists in the 4 films, in the interviews, in the old photographs, and in the way Mel Gibson and Danny Glover still speak about each other after nearly 4 decades. They showed the world that friendship does not need to be loud to be real. Sometimes it is found in a quiet conversation between takes. Sometimes it is found in a family dinner scene that feels more honest than any explosion. And sometimes it is simply found in showing up, again and again, for someone who has become part of your life. The reason audiences still connect with Riggs and Murtaugh is simple. Their friendship feels familiar. Many people have someone in their life who is completely different from them but still understands them better than anyone else. One person may be loud while the other is quiet. One may take risks while the other tries to stay careful. But when life becomes difficult, those differences can become strengths. That is what happened with Riggs and Murtaugh. And it is also what audiences saw in the connection between Mel Gibson and Danny Glover. Danny Glover once made the world laugh by saying he was too old for this. But the truth behind his bond with Mel Gibson is that neither man was ever too old to value loyalty, respect, and friendship. Their story is not only the story of Riggs and Murtaugh. It is the story of two actors who created something lasting together and who gave millions of people a reason to believe that even in Hollywood, some friendships are real. If this story brought back memories of Lethal Weapon, share your favorite Riggs and Murtaugh moment in the comments. And if you believe real friendship is about showing up when life gets difficult, let us know. Who is the person who has always stood beside you? Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next story.